All right, everybody, welcome to a joint event here. Now, so the fun part about this whole idea of sitting down with Elizabeth here from Indigo Marketing is we truly believe in actual integration of your marketing. And not only do you want to do that with all of the different pieces parts, which is what we're going to talk about today, but you also want to do it with your marketing friends. And Elizabeth Ryder's one of our marketing friends. And so we're super excited about having her here. We're super excited to be able to dive into this. And, Elizabeth, if you don't mind, I don't know how many of our people know you. I do. I mean, you and I talk a lot, but would you mind just taking a minute and introducing yourself a little bit and a little bit about Indigo before we dive into the webinar today?
Sure, of course. Thank you so much, Matt and the ProudMouth team for having me today. My name is Elizabeth Ryder. I'm the Director of Marketing at Indigo Marketing Agency, and we have been in business for a little over 8 years now, and we've helped hundreds of financial advisors, specifically independent financial advisors, grow their AUM through marketing. And I'm really excited to talk about one of the big strategies that we like to work with our advisors, which is integrated marketing.
Yeah. Well, listen, everybody, it's all about integration. I liken what we're going to talk about today to jazz music, right? So if you've ever actually been to listen to jazz music, if everybody is if they're all on the beat and everything's working well, it's absolutely fantastic. But one of them gets a beat behind or something, or plays a key change in the wrong, and it becomes a nightmare. And unfortunately, not to be mean, but a lot of your guys' marketing is kind of like a nightmare or bad jazz music. And this is what this whole webinar is going to be about. We're going to dive into all of the aspects of how you need to have your marketing integrated. We're also going to be talking about using podcasting as part, of course, podcasting as part of this integrated plan. But again, everything needs to be working together. All right, Elizabeth, I'm going to have you kick it off with our first slide here, which is like the greatest slide I've ever seen in my life. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this over to you. Let's talk about integrated marketing.
Yeah, so I love this slide because it really helps you kind of understand the different pillars, even though this isn't a pillar image of integrated marketing. And before you get overwhelmed by all the bullets that are listed next to each thing, it doesn't have to be complicated. Really, honestly, at its core, it's all about creating that consistent, targeted outreach. So when you're looking at this chart, I want you to start thinking about one highly piece of converting content, or if you have a podcast, even better, and how you're going to engage with your audience in each of these areas. Is it going to be in lead gen, through the testimonials, your website? Because once you start to mesh together your expertise and execution, that's really when the magic starts to happen. And we're going to delve into each thing individually. But before we delve into all of them, I want to know more about the metrics. And I think Matt's going to talk about that.
Yeah, so that's the thing. A lot of you want to have truly integrated marketing, but the issue is you're not actually setting real, tangible, quantifiable, and most importantly, realistic success metrics when it comes to your integrated marketings. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things, and then we're going to kind of go back and forth on this. So the first thing is, our whole idea of influence acceleration, you're really trying to stop talking to skeptics and really talking to fans. So skeptics are people who don't know who you are, what you do, or they don't like, know, and trust you because you haven't had a content strategy, a marketing strategy, and a branding strategy that really separates you from the advisor down the street. When you're talking to fans, these are people who not only know, like, and trust you, but they're going to be advocates for your brand. It is difficult to quantify because all of you are just looking for really one basic outcome, which is leads. Elizabeth and I totally get that, right? But there is so much other equity that happens in integrated marketing besides just having that ROI. We actually call it return on influence here. And there are really 5 aspects of return on influence. The first one is the content that you create itself. Right. So this is like, this is going to sound really corny, but it's art, right? You're telling stories and you're making graphical images and you're really educating people. There's value in that. It's also one of the greatest client communication tools, culture building tools, both externally and internally, so people truly understand who you are and what you do. The second one is it's easier to refer somebody to great marketing It is the Cole guy, right? A lot of you are still doing that. Hey, grab a piece of paper and give me your first, closest 5 work related people. It's like, I mean, nobody likes that crap anymore. It's way too salesy. It's so much easier. And Elizabeth is going to give us great examples of websites. She's going to give us great examples of what integrated marketing really is here in just a few minutes. It's easier to refer somebody to that. And the funny thing about this is, man, most of you aren't going to refer anybody to your website because your website sucks. And luckily we have a website expert with us. And that's one of the big things that Indigo can do for all of you. The next thing is it is easier to sell new products to existing clients with really, really great marketing. Now, a lot of you might think you're a one-trick pony, but you're not, right? There's so many new things and other ways that you can go ahead and offer auxiliary services or more things within your company, and with really great integrated marketing that can happen. Now, in the podcasting world, the next one is a little bit more podcasting focused because we want you to interview and deepen relationships with centers of influence. Now, you can do this with a joint blog. You can do this with some other joint integrated marketing, like presentation, maybe a webinar or a seminar together. But we know that if you, and this is actually one of the ways I know Elizabeth, is I've interviewed her, right? And so her and I have spent time together, and that really intense question and answer component of your entire relationship building system that you have, we know that podcasting and that interview is really, really powerful. And the last one is net new assets or leads. Now, I also just quickly want to talk about vanity metrics. And Elizabeth, before we move on to the lead generation component of this, when it comes to integrated marketing, how does Indigo truly look at success when it comes to return on investment with their marketing?
Sure. So we always try when we have conversations with advisors, the first thing they say is, hey, how many clients are you going to get me? And I always reply back, well, I can't guarantee you any clients, and anybody who is guaranteeing you clients is lying. But we want to make sure that, first of all, you're creating a professional presence that you're proud of. Like you mentioned, you want to be able to refer people there. And then you're wanting to look at numbers and metrics there to make sure that people are going to your website consistently, they're staying on your pages. You're wanting to make sure that when we're looking at social, we usually look at it depends on if you're a 1 advisor or 5 advisors, but at a minimum about 50 visitors a month just from social going to your website. And then your emails, looking through your emails. Okay, so what are your open click-through rates? And if you're not getting those open and click-through rates, are you pivoting on your content you're sending out, or are you just continuing to send the same stuff nobody wants to open? And we do have on our site a scorecard, or if anybody that wants a scorecard, I can send one over to you that has for if you're a single advisor or a multi-advisor, and you can rate yourself, and we go through all of those key areas because that is important. But I do have one question for you though, Matt, about it, because advisors ask me that have podcasts and say, hey, I've been doing this a while. Is my podcast working? Should I throw in the towel? So what is like an initial goal metric you kind of look for?
Well, for us, a lot of it is time in instead of output, right? And so it's really important for people to understand that any content marketing strategy, which is what we specialize in here to help influence or accelerate your influence, it's a long marketing play. Elizabeth, I liken it to good food, right? So good food is slow cooked, right? It is meticulously prepared and planned, and you have all of the wonderful things surrounding it, whether you're pairing it with wine or whatever. That's really integrated marketing. I'm using a lot of metaphors here, and I know that I used jazz earlier. Now I'm using food. But anyway, so one of the things that we really want is growth over time. So I think that's probably the best way to really see success in your podcast. Because if you go from one listener to 10, that's a huge growth, right?
Yeah.
And then you go from 10 to 100, right? And so over time, you want to really get to the point where at least the same number of clients you have listening to the podcast, or like if you have got 200 client households, if you're getting 200 listens, that's, by the way, phenomenal. Because here's the deal. Most advisors think that they should be getting tens of thousands of downloads in your podcast, right? You're in the top 0.1% with 10,000.
Yeah.
10,000. With 1,000, you're in the top 50% of all podcasts, Elizabeth. And so if you're looking at 5 to 600, especially if you're a local financial advisor with a rather small client household list, and you're in a very specific geographic area, think about that. Out of the 500 people listening to your show, you get one who's an A+ client. I mean, that's one of the things that you and I talk a lot about is what are we going to do to truly attract those best of the best, right?
Yeah.
And we're actually going to really focus on that here in a few minutes,
Mhm.
talking about what you need to do to make it so that you're really speaking the language of the peeps that you want to. In fact, I just totally previewed that because this is where we're at right now. And so here's the thing. You really can't market to everybody. If you think that you're going to be able to outspend Ameriprise, Edward Jones, Ken Fisher, Dave Ramsey, any of those people, you're on crack. It's never gonna happen, right? And so what you have to be able to do is narrow your niche and really, really, really focus. And then when you focus, everything changes. Now, Elizabeth, you and I have talked a lot about niches before. We've talked about it offline because I wanted to make sure that we were, kind of philosophically aligned here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about who you're talking to and how do you at Indigo truly help people suss that out?
Sure, sure. So when we first meeting with advisors, we always ask them if they have an itch. You don't have to have an itch to work with us, but we try to explain in many different areas that it works a lot better and it's a lot easier. And so when we go to their site, sometimes they will say, we work with teachers, physicians, attorneys, retirees, pre-retirees, legacy children. I was like, okay, that's not niching down. It's just saying you're working with everyone. And I love to say, like Bill Gates says, if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. And so we highly suggest you niche down to no more than 3. Honestly, 1 is better, but if you want to say that you work with corporate executives and something that plays along with like business owners and retirees, fine. But it is a lot easier to target there. Now, when you're having conversations, you first want to just go through your current list. Who do you like working with? Who brings you joy? Who do you not ignore when they call your office? So think more on those terms first before you're just looking at AUM. Because you're shaking your head, yes, because it doesn't matter if they're bringing you a lot of money. If you hate working with them, if you're hiding under your desk every time they're calling you to ask you about the market, you're not going to want 100 of them.
Yeah.
So really focus on that aspect. And then you can work through and say, okay, so which groups can actually provide value to? So maybe you've worked with a lot of teachers, so you understand the ins and outs of their benefits plan. Because that's just going to make the whole lead generation aspect really easy too, creating like valuable content there to share. Your website, all of the articles you write, your podcast episodes. And typically, if you find a group that you really like working with, you already have a bunch of clients, so it's easy to have them come on your show or to do case studies, things like that.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about, and I absolutely want to talk about testimonials and case studies in just a second, but you brought up Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Who is one of my personal heroes. I know you actually like Bill a lot too.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that that happens a lot is people do the referral. If you don't know who Bill Gates is, he's the referral coach. He's been around for really quite a while in our industry. He is one of the best of the best, one of the most giving, wonderful human beings. And if you have not signed up for his course, please do. Elizabeth and I are both, like I said, we're both really big fans of Bill. And one of the things that Bill has consistently said is when you do the who do you know, like 1 million people pop into your ideal client's mind. But when you have a niche and you say, I'll use teachers since you were just using that as an example, hey, Elizabeth, I don't know if you know this, but I really love working with teachers. Now, we do serve the community, and there are a lot of people who aren't teachers that we focus on. But listen, the 403Bs and all of the different aspects of the teacher benefits and what the pensions look like, and are they going to be retiring to something instead of really just retiring? These are things that we really specialize. Do you know any teachers who are approaching retirement? Man, I just laser focus my ideal client to help introduce teachers that my ideal client knows, and it makes everything a lot easier. And the best part about it is people don't look at that as a limiting factor, it actually is an expansive factor, right? It
Right.
really makes it so that it's so much easier for people to refer to you if you have a niche. And of course, with true integrated marketing, when you do have a niche, all of your marketing is singing the praises of teachers and you're using teacher language, then you become the teacher person, right? That everybody knows is you're the person who manages teachers. But it also really gets you teed up for this stuff.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people are very still concerned about testimonials, even though there's great workarounds for a lot of this stuff. So you can either use testimonials or case studies. And Elizabeth, that's something you have a lot of experience with. So I'm going to turn that back over to you, sister.
Yeah, so it's really no surprise that real stories will help drive real results for you. You're helping amplify those clients' satisfied stories. And when you kind of combine that with the intimacy of a podcast, we've really seen change happen. And kind of it's because it's that voice driven way. So they're hearing them talk on there. And when you're going through a success story or a case study, you're kind of walking them through, okay, the challenges they faced and the solutions you found for them. So some advisors kind of write this up. They're like, I don't want to deal with compliance on it, or, who's going to really want to read this? And I'm telling you, your clients, your prospective clients want to read it. Also your current clients, because they want to, understand that, oh, okay, so he's helping other people as well. It's not just me. Let me refer other people to him or her. And, it's just going to help kind of build that influence there and the trust. You want to make sure from a podcast perspective, I made a list of all the places that I thought that you could kind of share your testimonial case studies because I don't want to forget any. And the first is definitely having a client on your podcast, if at all possible, because being able to hear the authenticity of a client's voice is huge. But maybe you're not allowed to have them on, or you have no clients that want to come on, then at least go through a case study with someone. And if you feel kind of odd just doing it by yourself, have a team member on there with you, chat about it. And then you can post those on your website and link back to them. So always be thinking about like, okay, so now we did this. What are we going to do with it? We're going to email it out. We're going to put it on our website. So that's really all integrated marketing kind of is like, how am I going to use this piece of content the most amount of times and save me time producing new content? And then it really does build that trust there. So then you also want to do those in your emails. So that helps with that social proof. So sending out the podcast that you talked about with your testimonial case study, or just in general, and then you can link to the podcast, be like, oh, do you want to hear a little bit more about it? We talked about it on our recent podcast. So it's really just about this like power couple you're kind of looking for, and that's combining, the testimonial case studies whenever you can.
You know, there are a lot of advisors who are, who are watching this are saying, well, I really can't do that. And I'm so glad that you brought up the case study component of it, because even if they can't hear your client specifically, by using an interview and a conversation style podcast, specifically utilizing that case study and having you as the advisor tell the story of a client. So we have something called the perfect podcasting formula here. It's storytelling, education, entertainment, call to action. And storytelling is still, Elizabeth, you said it so clearly and succinctly, people see themselves in the stories. They want to know the stories. They love the stories. Everybody loves stories. What do most people do when they get done working? They watch stories. They're watching TV, they're reading a book, right? They're watching a movie, right? We love stories. Remember, any sort of content that you create, it's a show, and you need to bring that entertainment value to it. But if you, again, look at the perfect podcasting formula, storytelling is the top one. And this is why testimonials and case studies are so vitally important. And being able to integrate this onto your website. And then you can also use testimonials and case studies in a couple of different ways, which we're going to talk about in just a second. But I want to just dive a little bit more deeply into the perfect podcasting formula because it's so applicable here. So many of you are natural educators, right? That's part of what makes you want to get up in the morning, because you know that you're going to be able to have a great conversation with a client or spot prospect and teach them something that they didn't know. That's really freaking cool, right? Everybody really likes to do that. The two things that most advisors miss in their content is the storytelling and then the appropriate call to action. And so we believe that your calls to action need to be successive. It can't always be buy my product, right? You shouldn't do that, right? I mean, because you have to use your content to build that trust, that like, know, and trust sort of component. And that's what true integrated marketing can do for you. but you do need to ask them to do something, right? You really do. You shouldn't just be like, "Well, hey, thanks for listening," and hang up, right? You should. So there's a gentleman. His name is Dr. Robert Cialdini. And I can't believe that guy hasn't reached out to me yet, Elizabeth, because man, I bring this dude up like all the time. Anyway, he's got this book called The Principles of Influence. And one of the principles is the principle of reciprocity. And I love talking about the principle of reciprocity because we are hardwired as human beings. Well, to give, when somebody does something nice for you, we are naturally inclined to do something nice for them. Now, you can ask, which is fine. And we actually recommend that you do. It's much like asking for a referral or a testimonial, or can I use you in a case study? But if you ask for them to do something, and if again, if it's not wildly burdensome, it can be very, very impactful. And then the coolest thing is when you actually have all of this integrated content, what you can do is you can boost stuff by doing this next component, which is paid ads. So we don't really talk a lot about this at ProudMouth, mostly because we're not experts in the whole paid ad sort of thing. But as we're talking about integrated marketing, and Elizabeth, this is definitely something that's entirely within your wheelhouse. Let's talk about paid ads, because I know a lot of advisors want to know where to do it, how to do it. Does it work? How long does it take? So would you mind fielding some of those questions?
Of course. So I want you to view ads as just a way for you to amplify content to the right ears and eyes, because your regular content shouldn't just be your end game there. And we've seen time and time again that actually using your podcast for ads can really be a gold mine, because it allows you to share something without just saying, hey, buy my service, essentially. By having a conversation, it's an easier way to transition people in. And when you're promoting rich content, so whether that's a podcast or maybe you have an e-guide or just your monthly blog, and you're using those targeted ads, it's going to resonate, stick, and more importantly, convert. So make sure if you're creating content or ads there, they're not just always like book a call. Sometimes those are great, but you want to make sure you're actually having content there. And so how are you going to do this without breaking the bank? Well, the first way you can do it, which is completely free and not technically an ad, but I want to mention it since we just talked about testimonial and case studies, it's having your Google reviews if you're allowed to have them. That's basically free advertisement. I don't go to a new dentist or a new nail salon without looking somebody up. People are going to look you up before they give you your money. And it's an easy way to kind of have those combos of saying to your current clients, was it challenging when you're trying to decide who to work with? What do you think about sharing a little bit about your experience so somebody else would be able to make that decision much easier? So rather than being slimy about and being like, hey, like promote me, you're just being honest. The next way you can do it, which is free, would be just to promote your podcast content. So having highlights of your episodes on your email and social and all of that. Now we're talking about paid. So when you're thinking about social media, think targeted. So you want to find demographics and focus that way to be able to optimize your ROI there. And then when you think about Google ads, think more of that high search inquiry topic. So if you are niche down or you have a particular service somebody's going to be looking for, use your dollars that way for Google ads. And then this one, if you're already doing a webinar, you might as well cross promote and to promote your podcast at the same time. You could have a QR code up or just mention it throughout. And then I also love, if you're going to be at an event or conferences, talk about your podcast. Don't hide it. Make sure people know about it. You can bring it up casually in conversation and say, hey, well, I was just sitting down with so-and-so recently when we were talking about, whatever. And then they were like, oh, that sounds really interesting. What is your podcast? It's not salesy that way. You're just having a conversation because you're trying to figure out how to basically make sure every dollar spent is optimized so that your message kind of hits its mark. So that's how I like to view ads. And they're not for everyone. They're kind of for people that want to have a faster growth strategy. Because if you're sitting here and you're saying, I don't really want to grow, I just want to keep people happy, then you might not need paid media ads. But if you're trying to grow, and especially at a rapid rate, then you're going to need it.
Yeah. Well, and it can also so how long does that take, Elizabeth? So when you start a paid ad campaign,
Yeah.
in your guys' experience, is it like 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? What is the when do you really start seeing those ads working for you?
Yeah, so typically it takes about 30 days, to be honest. So you're beginning, we're testing out your A/B testing copy creatives. We want to see what's working for your target because what works for one advisor might not work for another advisor. And so we want to kind of test that out. We have had some recent campaigns go out that have been doing phenomenally well, that I'm super excited to share about when I can get, I want to make sure it's not a fluke for this person because it's so good. And I do find that if you have landing pages tied to your ads, whether it be social or Google, they perform better than just driving them to your website, your regular website. So maybe it's a highly converting piece of content like an e-guide or and when you're doing that, make sure it's of actual value, not just sharing for the sake of sharing to try to get an email address. Or you're maybe you have a special webinar or your a special episode of your podcast you want them to listen to before they book. Always be kind of thinking through, okay, so they clicked on my ad and I've got maybe 30 seconds to draw them in. And so with your copy, what you're sharing, have little bits. Think of your landing page almost as like a mini website, but don't overwhelm them with too much stuff. But have a little bit about you. Try to not use stock images. If you can have a video, great. And let them book an appointment right on your landing page.
Yeah. Well, let's go into websites. So,
Yeah.
how I like to tee up websites is most of yours suck. They need to be better because this is the billboard for everything. So, when you are really creating an integrated marketing plan in your financial services firm, everything starts with the site. It's just the reality, everybody. So, Elizabeth, I was on a sales call yesterday with an advisor. He's got, a couple $100 million under management. He's got 85 client households. He's doing pretty great, right? I mean, he really is. He's got like, 1.5 team members. He's winding down a little bit, but he wants to kind of boost in the next 10 years before he sells. And so he's, I pulled up his website and I was like, when did this get built? Like the 1900s, dude? He's like, I was like really early 2000s. I'm like, do you know how long ago that was? Oh my God. So, I mean, Elizabeth, this was like one of the worst websites I've seen in a long time. And it was like, look, you have to start here. Like, look, I would love for you to start podcasting with us, but if you don't have that billboard, that singular place that's efficient to go, then you're going to crash and burn. So you are going to give us some examples of some websites here real quick. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I'm going to go through because the worst thing you can do is have a website that repels your ideal client. You want to make sure it's a great first impression. It's your digital handshake. And I also like to say when you integrate your podcast, it kind of turns that digital handshake into like a meaningful conversation. So you're kind of keeping them longer and engaged with you. So I'm going to go through 4 websites and give me 1 second to pull it up. Okay. Everyone say it all right? So I'm going to go through 4 of them relatively quickly, but I want to highlight to you what's great about them. And the first one is really good about telling a story and connecting with your ideal audience. So we helped them with a new firm launch from the logo, website, copy, everything. And this advisor has very strong ties to the Jewish community, and they have a lot of Jewish clients. So the first thing they wanted right off the bat was to have a logo that speaks to them. So it has a Hebrew symbol in here, the tree of life. He knew that immediately they would recognize that. And that's important. The other really important thing that a lot of advisors miss is that they focus this main area on their website to try to be catchy, and they miss keywords. So when Google is searching your website and they're looking to find out what is this website about, they need to know right away. So don't, kind of bury the hatchet here. We're going to look for financial planning or financial advisor, or maybe do investments. And then where are you located? So he's in Scottsdale, Arizona. That's where he's trying to target. And then the other thing people miss is they forget a call to action, or their call to action is terrible. Maybe rather than getting started and book a call, they have, you could learn more about me, which it doesn't sound like that's going to be terrible, but they're not actually really taking an action. They're just delving further into your website. So kind of think those. Also think about the images you're using on your website, especially if you're going to use stock images. Don't use really dated ones. Try to have something more fresh and kind of speaks to who you're working with. And again, use keywords everywhere. You're going to almost feel like you're keyword stuffing, to be honest, but you want to use every keyword at least 5 times on a page, if at all possible. So having certified financial planner, fiduciary, and working that into your copy without sounding dry. If you have a lot of content, I wanted to show this. So you can do things like an accordion so that it doesn't end up being like a giant long page. And then within that, so they have like keywords like 529 plan or tax efficient strategy, things like that. And then I really like down here, he did a little snippet of what his process is going to be like, because that's what people want to know is what is it going to be like to work with you? What are your expectations? And they kind of lay that out right there. Now they delve into it more on that page, but it's good to have it here on your homepage. And then what I like about having the team members here is if you don't have a whole team photo, at least do something like this, or even if it's just like the main advisors, because an image that's real and of your team is always going to outperform a stock image, just to be honest. So you're going to want to have your faces on there, and they're all super friendly. So you want to make sure that people are like, oh, okay, that's who I'm going to be working with, not some random stock image. And then if you have awards, we always recommend adding them to your site. It just kind of helps there building you up as an expert. And then again, always end with a book an appointment. I'm going to move on to other pages, but you sound like you might have a question, Matt.
No, I do just have a very quick question. Can
Yeah.
you go ahead and scroll back down to what you called the accordion? So the accordion from an SEO perspective, even though that it is not visible, that still helps you with the keywords. Is that correct?
Yes, it should still help you. So you need to be really careful. There's 2 ways that your keywords are going to be kind of lost and not help you. Number 1 is pop-ups don't help you. And number 2, if you have images with the text on it. So for instance, I've seen advisors do their process plan where it's essentially they've uploaded an image because they had some like really great like infographic made. Well, every single keyword on that image is not going to be SEO optimized. The only thing that would be optimized about it is whatever you tag your image as. So if you're going in depth and writing a bunch of stuff in there, it's all lost. I also had an advisor that said, every month I'm posting content, and they were like flow charts about like, oh, what do I do with my 401k to rollover? And they're all PDFs. So he's not getting any traffic for that. So you would almost be better off just writing a blog about it and then including an image in there.
Got it. All right, let's see another website.
Yeah, so we have this one. There's one other thing about this one I wanted to show really fast, and that is on their blog. So if you have multiple advisors, make sure they're all authoring them if they're meeting with clients. So don't have it just come from the firm. It's better to come from an individual advisor. And if you have multiple advisors that are seeing people, make sure their blogs are based on if they, let's say one works with corporate executives and one works with business owners, have the content that's related to their niche be authored. That's just a little tip there. And then also obviously having your bios and call to action. So the next website, I like this one because they're in my backyard. We're in Clearwater, Florida. It's quickly, you're like, it's a beach theme, which can sometimes be a little like overplayed, especially for financial advisors. Seen a lot of beaches, a lot of lighthouses. But this one, we try to make it a little different by adding like a wave here with the image, making sure, again, we're saying he's an independent financial advisor. He's working with pre-retirees and retirees in Pinellas County, Florida, and he can book a call here. When you go down through here, he also wanted to mention the specific cities that he's working with, so Largo, Clearwater, St. Petersburg. I also just like that it does seem very down to earth. And if you're local in the Tampa Bay area, you know that most of us are pretty laid back here. And he's a really friendly guy. So make sure what it's like your experience working with you is going to be your website. So if you have a very stiff website, but when they show up, you're going to be in jeans and a t-shirt, that's going to throw them. Okay. So kind of like make sure you're portraying, one of the things I love is Stacey Havener one time said that your portrait online is out there and it can say whatever you want about you, but it's going to be living forever. So it could say something great about you. It could say something bad about you. But just make sure that it really resonates with your client and what it's like to work with you. So we have that. They're breaking it out, like retirees, pre-retirees here. When you're working retirees, to be honest, you don't super need to break them out as much as you would if you were working with specific target groups. Like, let's say you were working with oil workers and retirees, you would definitely want to separate it, but it's there. I like down here, he includes videos that are really easy for people to find. And again, a call to action. There was one other thing I want to show you. So the who we serve. So even though he broke them out and didn't super have to, I like that we have keywords at the top that are going to help. And also he went through and wrote down questions that he's getting all the time. When should I claim Social Security? How should I invest my retirement savings? And it's a little bit like cheating because it's what people are searching for. It's not going to always bring you. Sometimes people think if I add the questions they're asking, I'm going to get rank number one. That's probably not going to happen, but it can't hurt and it will help kind of answer questions that people legitimately have. So that is what I really like on there. They have some other basic pages and their blog. I like that they kind of switch up their titles a little bit. So rather just saying like learn about Social Security, they were like, you know, the Social Security tax torpedo. They had some other ones on here that were kind of cute. And then when you go in here, that's going to have your keywords everywhere. And then you can easily share the post as well, because you want to make sure that you're not making it difficult for people to share content. Moving on, this one I just briefly wanted to cover because we do have a lot of advisors that work with veterans or folks that are in the military, and they wanted a website. They were like, I wanted to scream, you know, military American families we work with. And you can do that with anything, like maybe you only work with doctors or you work with dentists or anything like that. So I wanted to give an example of somebody that wanted to be red, white, and blue, use copy that's going to resonate with them. And I think, Matt, you said you had a question.
Well, I do. So I think this is one of those, you highlighted it throughout these, right? So there you kind of progressively went from, I'm working in the Jewish community here, which is a rather fine niche, to a person who is working with retirees and pre-retirees and really now focusing on the veterans specifically. And I just wanted to say that I just absolutely love the examples that you had here because it's so important for people to understand that you really, really need to have that level of specificity. So here's the deal. Listen, take a picture of this QR code. Is if you want somebody on the Indigo team to really take a look at what you all have today and do this website and SEO audit, please take advantage of this, everybody. I know Elizabeth gets asked this all the time. I know she gets messages on social media. We get asked all the time at ProudMouth, well, gosh, I already have a podcast. Is it any good? Right. And so one of the things that experts and professionals like Elizabeth and myself, we love to be able to give back, to truly be able to help you with that. Elizabeth, is there anything else that you want to say about our quick shameless plug for Indigo here before we get moving?
So one of the things that I really love about our audits is that it's not going to be, you could go to any site and just put your website in, to be honest, and they'll give you a report. But those reports are really kind of a nightmare to go through. You don't even know what you're looking at. It's just a PDF. So when we go through, we're actually going through your site live and doing a recording and giving you recommendations. So when we're saying, hey, you're missing H1 tags, we're showing you, hey, this is what an H1 tag is. This is where it's missing. And this is, recommendations to change it. So we just really want to make sure that advisors are having something customized right from the beginning, that they understand what it's going to be like. And so I did want to jump into, so we talked about the website, but really your website is kind of a story half told without a podcast, and understanding what are your episodes going to be. So Matt, can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So Elizabeth, all of this doesn't make a lot of sense if you don't have the content to support everything. And I know you get asked this all the time. Oh my God, well, I know I need to create all of this content, but I've absolutely no idea what to do. So here's what I'm going to do. In about 3 to 4 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 12 podcast/content topics. Okay. And so this could be an entire calendar year. Everything that you're going to write in 2024, whether it's blogs, videos, podcasts, you can use this system. So grab a piece of paper, open a Google Docs. I'm going to go through this very quickly. Now, you are all going to get a copy of this recording, so you can go back over this stuff, but I'm going to blow through this pretty quick. All right. So episodes or content pieces 1, 2, and 3, you have to document your origin story. And when you're looking at the websites that Elizabeth had showed, and she had the team members at the bottom there, right? You should be able to click on those team members and you should be able to truly find out who that person is. Don't have the boring, stupid freaking bios, right? That are just, you look like everybody else. Remember, how you are going to be successful is you have to separate yourself from the advisor down the street. Now, we really do believe that you can actually take a podcast and have that podcast attached to your image and your bio. Do you want to know more about Elizabeth Ryder? Click here, and then they can actually truly experience and hear you tell your story. And that's episode number 1. Number 2, and again, this goes entirely along with the true integration aspect. Elizabeth was talking about having his process. The second website showed his process. That's your second episode or your second major piece of content. And then the third thing, whether you're working with the Jewish community or you're working with veterans, you need to have a whole entire piece of content, again, audio, video, or blogs, that is specifically focused using the language of your ideal client. So that's episode number 3. All right, episode 4, 5, and 6, you're going to categorize 3 different things. The first thing you're going to categorize is, what is the question? And I love on that second website, there were the questions that gentleman get asked all the time. That's a content piece, right? So what do you hear from your clients all the time? So that's one of the episodes. That's episode 4. Episode number 5 is, what are the top 3 to 5 questions that you always get from prospects? Because they're going to be different than than your existing clients. And then the third one is where most people don't think. This is episode number 6. What do you hear from your referral partners? If you really want to know what people are saying about you, you need to talk to the people who refer business to you. So what are those questions? How do you and my CPA work together so well? Or why do you want to have a CPA as part of this core team, or estate planning attorney, divorce attorney, real estate agent, whatever your area is? That's vitally, vitally important. So that's episodes 4, 5, and 6. Now, 7, 8, and 9, this is way more than just 3 pieces of content, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about it because, again, on the second website, he was talking about pre-retirees and retirees. So that could be episode 7 and 8, but maybe episode number 7 or maybe episode 9 is the accumulation phase. There's going to be the largest transfer of wealth in the world's history over the next 10 to 15 years. And very few of you who have any content talking to the people who are actually going to be inheriting this money. So an accumulation phase podcast/content creation probably could be 3 to 5 to 7 episodes specifically. And that's what you want to do. So for accumulation phase, pre-retirees, and then retirement. Every single one of these has to be infused with stories. What is it like? Why? You have to tell the why. How are you going to feel? What is the ultimate goal of you actually, accumulating assets, right? You want to freaking talk about that, right? How do you do it when you're not making a lot of money? The 401k match. Again, you all know this stuff. And part of what Elizabeth and I love to do is to prime the pump that's already in your brain skull. And you know what you're going to be saying once you get this stuff primed. All right. So episodes 10, 11, and 12, listen, it's all going to be about centers of influence. Now, full disclosure, this is how we have grown our entire business at ProudMouth, is by interviewing centers of influence. And here's why this is so important. When I interview somebody like Elizabeth, right, I'm gaining access to Elizabeth's audience. Now, is there overlap in our world? Well, yeah, we know a lot of the same people, right? But here's the thing. When you interview an estate planning attorney, a CPA, a real estate agent, a person who sells yachts, fine cars, crappy cars, I don't care. The price of admission for them gaining access to your audience is you are going to get access to theirs. And if you have a good system in place, you will also be able to provide them with content to just say, hey, look, we've already teed this up for you. Here, you were on our podcast, or you were on a guest video or blog, an interview. here's how you share this with your audience. They do not get on your podcast. They do not get on your website. They do not get into your content funnel unless they agree to do that. Now, I was just on a call yesterday, and this guy was like, he's writing, I could tell that he's feverishly writing things down. And he was like, dude, I have 20 names right now. Yeah, there you go. Right. And he's like, I didn't realize it was going to be that easy. And this is one of the reasons why we truly want to make sure that we bring content like this to all of you, because this is all just supposed to be sparking ideas.
Mhm.
Do we have solutions? Hell yes, we do. Right? You can get your free website and SEO audit from Indigo on that last slide, right? And we have an entire academy that we have built in order to help you with that too. So Elizabeth, here's the deal, sister. We need to get rolling through some of these slides. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to. So you've already talked a little bit about some of the branding stuff. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit, if you don't mind, to really kind of talk about. Really some visual components of it, because we know that every single solitary thing has to be part of very, very specific brand standards. And so I'm just going to show a couple of quick examples of some cover art. And actually, I'd like to pitch this back to you as a fellow creative and a person who works within this industry. So the reason why I wanted this on here is very, very simple, is because the name of the show, right? Relax, it's retirement. Nobody's relaxed about retirement. And I just love that Josh flies in the face of conventional thinking with this. What do you like about this as a fellow marketer?
So, well, first off, I really love its green because it's my favorite color. But I also, as a millennial, I do think that, and I know that he works with a younger audience, this is going to work perfect. It's simple. There's font usage that's newer, trendier. But also, so you said, who's relaxing about retirement? Well, I think millennials are relaxing about retirement a lot because it's not this big looming event anymore. People are retiring younger. They're wanting to travel, have active lifestyles. It's not the end. So I really liked it. I was like, oh, that's really great. And I think a lot of, millennials or maybe even Gen Xers would like it.
Well, as a Gen Xer, I do. I think it's freaking awesome, even though that my generation's never going to be able to retire, but that's a different story entirely. All right, so let's talk about another one. So now this is where we really start laser focusing on an actual niche. So this is a new podcast that we just launched very, very recently. And there's two things that I really wanted to focus on with this one. The first one is we actually create in our managed influence services, we create previews of your show so that you can start getting people excited about your podcast before it's ever released. And so that's what this component is here. The other reason why I really like this, if you've ever met or if you want to feel what Marsha Miller's like, this is it, man. Like, she's just very down homey. She's kind of country, right? And that's just part of, because here's the deal, sharing stories to nurture veterinary success. Her entire niche, Elizabeth, is freaking veterinarians in Florida. So what is your critical eye on this one?
Sure. Well, the first thing is I like that they're subscribing on there. That's great to have a call to action. Make sure you're putting it everywhere, not just promoting your podcast by just uploading it on your website. You need to actually promote it on social, emails, like get people excited and interested in it. Now that you said like the making hay makes even more sense now. Like I was like, oh man, I'm like creating this visual picture of what it's like sitting there listening to her do this podcast. So I think it's great and very niche focused.
All right. Mindset.
Mhm.
So we talked about ROI. We talked about success metrics. What do you think about marketing mindset? Because a lot of advisors are really thinking that it's that A plus B equals C equation. I market, I get leads, I make more money. But there's so much more to that. What do you think about where advisors' brains should be?
Yeah, no. So you should always be thinking about what am I going to do with this piece of content next? If you want to jump to the next slide, I kind of show you some different areas. Because, so you're going to want to not only email it out, but you could have banners on your current emails you're sending out. You want to make sure if you're doing a blog post and it has a similar topic, link back to your podcast, sharing it on social. So putting it not just the teasers, but maybe if you're doing a long form post and their podcast is about it, including on there. Because the two biggest mistakes I see with people with their content, whether it's a podcast or blog or anything, is number one, they don't use it. They overthink their edits. They're trying to like get perfection or they don't deploy it. And the next is they don't let their content reach the full potential. So they don't have call to action. They're missing referencing podcast episodes and content. Their content doesn't resonate with their ideal audience, or that one and done pieces. So really, I have like a quick 4-point recap of what they should do to integrate their marketing with their podcast. Yeah. So one is think about your email. So your email signature, share your episodes, banners, think about drip email campaigns for people that sign up to your podcast. Then you want to do social, not just one time. Okay. Don't just drop your episode, do those clips, teasers. You want to, like we talked about, having them share them not only on your firm page, but individual pages, and get your team excited and engaged to like, comment of those. And then you want to make sure with that content we talked about, making sure they're in the body of the articles, mention them in videos or have QR codes up like we had earlier for people to subscribe. And then on your website, absolutely do not hide it. You're going to want it to be easily defined, optimize, and just promote the heck out of it, really.
And I want to just add to that, because there's the foundation of everything that you need to do. And I just want to remind everybody that it's a show. So the reason why I had Candace Parker on that slide is because she's probably shot 100,000 baskets, dribbled the ball a million times. But before she actually goes for showtime, which in her case is game time, and being one of the best basketball players of our time, she's still practicing, she's still warming up. So when you're creating your content, you have to be in the right marketing mindset. And the only way that you get there is practice. And then the other thing that you always have to remember is people want to buy you. And I loved the website examples that you shared, Elizabeth, because they seemed very personal, right? So listen, there are some really important things that all of you need to pay attention to. But one of the most important things is you have to be your own loud. Now, you all know that that's a core message of us here at ProudMouth. We truly want you to rise above the noise, because if you don't be you, because you're the only you there is, and if you were truly you, then you have zero competition. You're just going to contribute to the noise, to the crap that's out there. And you don't want another crappy website. You want to have a really personalized website that's going to allow you to get your you-ness out there. Now, as we wrap up, we got a little ways to go here. We need to talk about frequency. So I'm going to talk about the podcasting component, and you're going to talk about the other content component. So here's the thing. So many people think that they have to podcast every week, and that's just not the case. And in fact, we do not recommend that at all. We recommend that you're doing a maximum of 2 podcasts a month, because if you listen to everything that we've been talking about up until this point, and Elizabeth, you just said it, right? You don't just do it once, right? You should be consistently posting about your content and your blogs and your thought leadership and your influence. Those are the different things that you need to do. So, well, I'm going to turn this back over to you. What do you think about content frequency?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is to be consistent. If you know right off the bat, you're not going to be able to do weekly content, whether that be a podcast or a blog or anything, don't do it, because you want people to know what to expect from you. And then, so we recommend a minimum of 1 time a month piece of content, whether that be a video or article, and varied formats are great. So in an ideal world, you're going to send out 1 to 2 pieces of regular content. So an article or video, bi-weekly podcast, if you really have some value there, like don't be sending out cookie cutter stuff, and then a timely piece as needed. And then from social media, you're going to want probably 3 times a week, to be honest. And then be timely though. So over on the right side, we did this Russia Ukraine article for someone because we wanted to make sure our clients had information available to send to their clients within 24 hours of when things were hitting. And that is a big challenge for advisors, because I know working in a independent advisor's office for over a decade, all the time, we didn't have what we needed. And we're scrambling to try to come up with emails, get them approved to get out, versus just having something readily available that's, compliance friendly. Now, you also want to make sure that you're being authentic. I know it's a buzzword, but all it really means is to be genuine. And I know that most advisors are genuine. So why does your content seem spammy or basic? Make sure you're doing at least 4 pieces of personal content a year. So why I became a financial advisor. And that one really should be a video, to be honest. Having your stories tied in there, or mistakes or life lessons. Always when you're looking at your articles, spruce them up. So if you can't afford to work with somebody to get fully custom content, but you have some pieces there, go through it and spice it up a little bit with your stories. That's huge. And really, you're just trying to make those meaningful connections as often as possible.
Yeah. It's interesting. My partner Kirk Lowe brings this up all the time, that the highest performing post he's ever posted on LinkedIn was him with his family down by the lake.
Mm.
It wasn't all of the brilliant thought leadership he's been sharing over the last 20 years. It was a freaking picture of him hanging down with his family down by the lake. So, that's the sort of stuff I think a lot of people, and I love how you said that they overthink it. Advisors, I mean, that's one of the reasons why you're a really great advisor, is because you're highly detail oriented. You really want to strive perfection. You don't want to ever make any mistakes, but
Yeah.
you also have to give yourself that gift of being able to be yourself. And
Mhm.
that is vitally, vitally important. If you are out and about, right, at a baseball game, you are watching your kids' sports, you're trick or treating, whatever it's going to be, listen, that's the sort of stuff that people already know you for. And I
Yeah.
don't want you to shy away from that at all. All right. So, Elizabeth, we don't really have a huge amount of time. This slide here could end up being an entire freaking presentation.
I
Let's
know.
talk just a little bit about SEO, and then let's give some people some stuff that they can do.
Yeah, so this one though is really important because your visibility on the internet is governed by search engine optimization. And so you always want to be thinking how you're going to rank higher. So with your podcast or any piece of content, make sure that you're optimized title tags, meta tags, and descriptions. If you have a podcast, I've seen so many where I go to it and then it's just blank after, it just has the episode. Have a summary with keywords in there, have a transcript is even better. And make sure the topics you're talking about are going to be things people are searching for, keywords that you want to work. Backlinking, you can do this a really easy way by having collaborations, having people on your podcast. It kind of makes that an easy task, and it's going to broaden your audience there. And then make sure you're taking the time to do keyword analysis to know what's going to work. I work with many advisors that come in and they want to call themselves a special name. And while that seems nice in theory, you need to also include things like financial advisor or financial planning, because that's what people are searching for. And so you just be mindful of that and have somebody help you come up with those at least 5 main keywords you should be targeting, because it really is not a nice goal here with all of this content to make you be seen, heard, and really valued by the right audience, not just anyone.
Well, you just got me all fired up, and maybe this is a part 2 of this, sister. We need to dive into this, because this is one of the parts of that drive us crazy about people who just think that they can go ahead and just start their own podcast, and then they're like, well, they do 6 episodes, it's called Pod Fade, and they quit. Is because they're not thinking like that. They're not putting the right summary in place and doing the right sort of tagging and the backlinks. And I'm old. I mean, I'm really not that old, but one of the things that we learned, because I'm in that transitional generation, is it was used to be known as the World Wide Web, and people seem to have forgotten the web component of this. All of these things, the more things that you have leading in and leading out, and the traffic going back and forth, actually really truly still to this day does help. The other thing that really helps is for you to understand that you are competing in the expertise economy. Listen, things have changed. I don't care if you like it or not. It's just the reality of what's happening. The regular sorts of, who do you know, buying leads, all of these things, it's just people don't want to be sold to anymore. What they want to do is they want to buy from you, and having a really truly great integrated marketing campaign really helps with that. And if you want to know more about how we can help you with this entirely for free, it's free right now, it's not going to be free forever, right? Please click on this QR code, join the PodRocket Academy with unbelievable content in there to really truly help you rise above the noise and be your own loud. And Elizabeth, you're going to go ahead and wrap it up today.
Yeah, so please reach out to us. Our team is phenomenal. We have industry experts, and they want to know what's worked and what hasn't for you in the past to help you come up with a customized plan. We're all about custom over here. We don't want to just say, hey, it works for one advisor, works for everyone. That's not true. So contact us, and we would love to help you grow your business this year and the coming year. Thank you so much, Matt, for having me on today. This was so much fun. I could talk about it all day long. But we'll also, if you schedule the free marketing call, we can get you the free website audit and SEO audit, so we can delve in deeper there and have those one-on-one conversations.
Well, it's surprising to me that you said, you can talk about this all day, because this is literally all you and I talk about all day
I
long
know.
anyway. So
It
listen,
is.
I want to thank everybody for spending some time with Elizabeth and I. If you don't know, please go to the Indigo Marketing website. Please click on the QR code. And if you want to know about how you can accelerate your influence using podcasting as a major component of it, please join the Pod Rocket Academy. So for Elizabeth and all of us here at ProudMouth, we will see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Thank you.